you to everyone who has been logging on and joining us for today's webinar. We are so happy to have you here. We can't wait to get to talk to you guys about the topic today. It's one we find is very important and we think it's not often talked about enough. So we wanted to make sure to kind of help get some different topics out there. And this was one we thought was very interesting. For those of you who are unaware, we do record all of our webinars and those will be placed on our website. So if you need to find those at a later date or want to share it with someone else, feel free to head over there. Today's topic is going to be a Coalition Basics series, and it's going to be focusing on time management. Like I said, this is something that we don't find ourselves an expert in by any means, but we wanted to make sure to kind of help share some tips and tricks that we've found along the way and some information that we thought would be helpful to all of you guys. Today for our webinar, we have the lovely Mary Ann here to help kind of facilitate today. I will also be monitoring the chat and the Q&A function in the background. So as we go through today, guys, feel free to pop anything in the chat. I noticed you guys have already kind of been saying hello in there, which is awesome. But if there's anything you have comments on, feel free to use that or the Q&A function, whichever is easiest for you. With that, I will go ahead and hand it over to Mary Ann to get us started.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mary Ann, and I am grateful that you are here. I know that the only reason I attended a time management program was because I was forced to when I first attended one. It was done by Dr. Jeffrey Ford, who's a professor at the Fisher College of Business at Ohio State University, and he literally wrote the book on time management. And these slides are adapted from his work. I am, as Jess said, I am by no means an expert. So if you would like to contribute your own tips and tricks that work for you throughout the program, that would be delightful. Please do that, because I find that I learn every time I do one of these presentations. There were a couple things when I attended the time management program, I was thinking, I know how to manage my time. Why are you making me take time to attend a meeting about it? But there were things I learned. I hope you will learn something as well. So Dr. Ford looks at time management as that there is a problem. Then there's 4 C's. And then we go about implementing this time management option. And then we'll have time for questions. So to begin with, let's just talk about the problem. Now, I don't know about you, but I have a lot to do. And unfortunately, that is not going to change because I want to do everything. I also don't seem to have enough time to do it. I need to take time to sleep and eat and spend time with my family, and there's all kinds of great opportunities. And the time amount in a day is not going to change. I wish I could wave a magic wand and give myself 8 extra hours, but that is not the case. So the only thing I can do is manage my workflow. I have a number of tasks, and if I manage them correctly, I will survive. And I'm hoping you all will feel the same way. So for the next minute or so, I'd like us to do, for you all to put in the chat, where do you collect things? Like the things that you need to do. How do you know what you have to do? I like to write it down, but I also like to have an Excel spreadsheet. I am a researcher. I also, see value in calendars. So I'm wondering, where do you collect things? And do you collect things in one place? The list of things that you need to do, is that a one place only? I see Calandra is saying it's a to-do list. And I'm wondering, Calandra, is that one, or do you have multiple? Because I know in the past I would have multiples. the one that I was going to do today, and then the ongoing one. You always find you collect things to do when you're at a meeting. Yes. The the meeting is always a place where we get lots of assignments. And it's also a place where I can zone out and make to-do lists. And I see tons of sticky notes. Sticky notes are good. They are movable. Eileen, do you have anything that you want to add? Okay, well then I am just going to continue on. So, as a researcher, I need to feel like I'm effective. And I feel effective when I cross things off my list. So different people feel effective in different ways, but how do you know if you are being effective? A couple weeks ago, I was talking with a client that had 2 to-do lists, and I encouraged him to just get it down to 1. We're going to talk about the 4 C's of time management. There's collecting our to-do list, collecting, and then some that, mostly I just think about collecting. I don't think about considering, committing. I do think about completing. So a lots of times people just think about collect and complete, and they don't take time to consider and commit. So when you're collecting, it seems like everybody's good with one tool to get everything on there. Tasks, projects, requests, get that all on there, and then consolidate so that you can get things done that make sense, be systematic about it. And if it takes less than 2 minutes, don't put it on the list, just do it. That way, it's one less thing on your list, unless you're like my cousin, who will, on purpose, write things on her list after she's done them so she can cross them off. And then with collection, just pick one tool. It doesn't matter which one it is, because there are several. I mean, we live in a digital age. We can collect it electronically. We can collect it on a calendar, an electronic calendar, a regular calendar. We just have so many options, and commit to using it. This is something that we don't always take into account. We don't take into account considering. We don't take into account the time it's needed to actually complete something. I often underestimate the amount of time it takes to complete something. Several times I will think I can do multiple things at one time, and I don't do them well when I do that. Also, I think that I can work without being interrupted. And as Dr. Ford discovered, it seems like we can work in like spats of 11 minutes before we will be interrupted by something. It could be another person, it could be a bird tapping on the window, but we have a very low threshold between interruptions. And a lot of people, when they do their work, they set priorities. Like there's my, the stuff I do 1, 2s, and 3s, A, B's, and C's, but there's the stuff that has to get done really quickly, stuff that would be nice. And then when I have time, I will get to the C level priorities. This helps me figure out what I'm going to accomplish and what I'm not going to accomplish. Because honestly, I very rarely get to the C level priorities. The thing that I got from this webinar when I first attended it was either I say no at the beginning, or I say no when I do not accomplish what I said I would by a certain date. It's just the non-confrontational way to say no. So I would rather have somebody tell me no upfront than tell me yes and then not do it. And this goes to making amends is more than just an apology. It's a change in behavior. I don't know what, I have worked with some people who will constantly say, I'm sorry, I should have gotten you that sooner. I'm sorry, I know you needed this. I'm sorry. I want to see a change in behavior. I appreciate the I'm sorry. So after you consider all of the items on your to-do list, it's suggested that you commit. And you do that by creating a schedule. And these are the items that you're actually going to do. You figure out how much time it's going to take for you to do them, and you can actually put them on a calendar or schedule some time so that you know what you are going to accomplish. And admit that there's some items that you are just not going to get to. It would be nice if you would allow time for transitions and lunch. I need to eat an afternoon meal, but I do not always schedule time for that. There's also travel time. My mother always used to give me a hard time because I always tried to get there like right at the minute and never allowed for, a red light. Especially good to schedule are some prep and follow-up, because as someone said in the chat, there's lots of to-dos that come out of a meeting. We schedule time for the meeting, but we don't always schedule time for the follow-up. We need to acknowledge that we're going to have interruptions. Everything we've said so far is great, but I got to answer my emails, and I have people stopping by my door, or the phone's ringing, or you get the ding that you got a text, or, I am easily distracted by shiny objects. So there's always interruptions. And we, if we're working in person, we could have a stoplight on our doors. And you could put a red, like you can place a little arrow with some tape on it. And if you can't be interrupted, put it at the red light or put it at the yellow light. Be honest about the number of interruptions you have. Block time, adjust your expectations so that you can get stuff done. And accept that, sometimes our job may just be about dealing with the interruptions. So they're going to happen. Just try to account for them. So now you've come to your schedule and you've made commitments. You filled in your schedule, and instead of looking at it as a to-do list, look at it as a list of accomplishments. These are the items that you are going to accomplish. Take some time to make sure that you commit to doing some email. You don't have to answer it as it comes in. You can do it at the beginning of the day, at the middle of the day, at the end of the day. If it's urgent, they'll get to you in a different way. Make sure that you account for your work style and habits. Like I said, I am attracted to shiny objects. So I need to schedule, like I can work for about 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes on a report, but I cannot, spend 3 hours working on a report. So I just need to schedule my time accordingly. And also remember that we all have personal lives. So we need to make sure that we schedule time for those things that are important to us in our personal lives as well. So as I said, You're no longer scheduling tasks. Now you are scheduling your accomplishments. And the schedule you create should support that, not restrict it. So this is where when you get multiple priorities, you can negotiate that by saying, what is more important to you? If your boss comes to you and says, I need you to do this, and I need you to do A, but you were already doing B, well, then you can say, what's the priority? A or B? I can do one. Let me know. It's also a good idea to communicate to others what you are doing so that when they see your calendar populating with time to write reports, they know that you can be interrupted. Some people are really good and can color code. I'm not quite there yet, but remember to be honest about how much time things take. Don't be in an argument with reality. If something really takes 3 hours, don't schedule it for an hour and a half. It's going to take 3 hours. Everything takes time. Remember that if something is not on the schedule now because you are scheduling your accomplishments, you're not actually doing it. It might happen by chance, but it's not something on your schedule. Does anybody have any questions about these two elements? We're all familiar with collect, but does anybody have any comments about consider, making sure prioritizing or are committing? So now that you've scheduled your accomplishments, now you do the things you scheduled yourself to do. You've made promises and you keep them. Set yourself up for success by giving yourself more time than you think you will need. That way there's less disappointment. Another thing I've learned when I did this webinar was make good requests of other people. So I will send emails that say, kindly request, in the memo line, kindly request response by a certain date, because I know that I work to deadlines. And if I think I have all the time in the world to complete something, it will go to the bottom of the list. So I try to make good requests by asking people for something specific and telling them when I need it by. I also will indicate like what format I need it in. I work with a lot of numbers and sometimes people help me with that, and I need to explain to them what format I need those in. And as somebody in the chat said, set check-ins or reminders. It's nice to have a person that you work with to be accountable to. That way it is a two-way street. I can make requests and sometimes people get back to me and sometimes they don't. So if I'm helping you, I would hope that you would help me. The other things I try to remember when I'm completing a task is to manage interruptions. Impromptu conversations are seldom urgent, whereas a DFC grant request deadline may be. So I will try to avoid the impromptu conversation when I'm working on reviewing somebody's grant application. And I try to be respectful of people's systems. The more things have changed in the world, the more I find communication has changed. There's, some people like to be communicated with by email. Some prefer text. Some prefer phone. So I try to be aware of how people like their communication. Some people like face-to-face. And if I can, I try to limit my communications to first thing in the morning, like when I take a break for lunch, and at the end of the day. So that way I'm aware of my communications in email. Very rarely is something urgent. I feel sorry for people who try to text me while I'm working because I tend to think, folks, there are my nieces thanking me for the Halloween card that I sent. So I don't look at those as often. But knowing how other people appreciate communication, I have a client who is more of a texter. So if I want to communicate with them, I will do that. So know who you're talking to, know what their schedule is like, and know how they like to communicate so that you can get their support when you need it. So now that you've got this lovely schedule and you've scheduled your accomplishments, you need to make sure that you complete what you have scheduled. So this is your opportunity to say no if your schedule is full. If you've already got way more than you can do in a reasonable amount of time, you have my permission to say no. I know that many times I need somebody else's permission to say no because I feel like I need to do it. So please say no if your schedule is full. As I said prior, with the supervisor, use the schedule as a negotiation tool because there's only so much that can get done in a given amount of time. If you have to move something, if something's not going to be done by the date that you promised or that somebody else requested, communicate that as soon as you know, because that way the other person could adjust their expectations. I have a favorite saying that my expectations of others are inversely proportional to my serenity. If I expect you to do something for me and it doesn't get done, I will not, I'll feel kind of like my promise, that the promise has been broken. So I just need to be mindful of that. And the more I can do to help the folks I work with understand what they need, what I need from them, that is better for me getting the job done. So I see Calandra feels the same way that I do about, I'm assuming it's about, expectations of others. Yes, thank you. If you're not going to do that, that's why the most important thing I got from this was either you say no, you can't do it in the beginning, or you say no by not doing it. And I would rather have you say no right at the beginning, because when you say no by not doing it, that just, it screws with my expectations, and it could impact a big project that I'm working on. So it sounds like some of you are on board with this. So this next slide may not be for you.
I have a question really quick, Mary Ann, before we move on. This is kind of one that just popped up in my mind, and I'm sure a couple other people might be thinking about it too.
Great.
So let's say that maybe you're having issues with a coworker who tends to not say no to things and you're finding they just aren't getting things done. Is there a good way to go about maybe having this conversation, or is it something like maybe having them attend a time management webinar to help them learn some new tools? Is there a good way to easily say, like, is there an easier way to, I guess, bring this up to someone?
So I am a big fan of documentation. And so I would look for and specific examples. So if I asked somebody for something and they said they would get it to me and they don't, and they don't do that, this is something that there's a pattern and you document it 3, 5, 6, 10 times, then I would have a conversation with the person and say, hey, this is what I'm noticing. This is what has happened. I would prefer that you just say no to me in the beginning than giving me false hope. So that's one way of handling it. The other way of handling it is like, I don't know about you, but I have a really good friend that is never on time. So we always tell her that we're doing something a half an hour in advance in the hopes that she will be on time. So if you are asking somebody for something and never getting it, then you may have to find another source. You might have to talk to a supervisor.
Yes.
Depends on who the person is.
Okay.
Surely if it's your supervisor, you can't, that's a much more delicate conversation.
Yeah. Okay. And yeah, like Eileen says, sometimes it's unfortunate. People might take it personally. Yep. And sometimes they will. I was kind of curious about how you've maybe gone around that in the past. So thank you.
Yeah, there was a very wise woman who worked with me at my old job, and we had 3 rules for success. The first one was never leave home without breakfast. You would not get into your car to go to work without gas in the tank. The second one was do not take things personal. It is not about you. It is about performance. And the third one was if the day has not gone as you thought it should, go home and work with your attitude because you can learn from what happened. So, yeah, see, now I knew there aren't many people here, and I'm thinking the people that are here probably already get this. And because as I said at the beginning, I only came to this kind of presentation because it was mandatory. So I understand what you're saying, Eileen, who says, preach, yes. Sorry about that. I will get off my soapbox, but dear Betty, what a great legacy she left us. So any other questions? That was a great question, Jess. Thanks. The folks who do take it personally, that's why I'm all about documenting. In my old job, I supervised people. And when you did that annual review, man, if you gave them a less than stellar, I just had to be specific because everybody, you're right, they took umbrage and you had to be able to back it up. So, and right, if it hasn't been written, it hasn't been said, and if it's not written, you don't work on it. Most people will work on something that is in writing. There are times that we assume certain practices, but we might assume them and many of us might follow them, but if they're not in writing, there's no guarantee. This might go a little quickly because I'm thinking that you people are aware of all these. I needed to hear these when I attended it. Why won't this work for you? I basically thought my time was on my own. I needed to take care of A, B, and C for other people. I was too busy to plan my accomplishments because there were so many other things going on. So just remember, nothing changes if nothing changes. We need to manage our time better, and maybe that'll flow down to others or up, depending on who needs help managing their time. So for those of you that are new to this, go easy on yourself because it takes time to establish new habits. I was lucky because when I started this process, everybody, like I said, it was mandatory. We all had to attend these trainings. So being professionally ruthless was allowed because we were all in it together. We all had attended the training. And I think this is funny about, well, not funny, haha, but ironic, because sometimes things catch on fire. And the gentleman who helped me with these slides, his house caught on fire and during a thunderstorm, and his schedule, for months after that was impacted by that fire, plus all the stuff that he lost in the fire. So we are lucky that there's always another day. So if something doesn't work out one day, there's always the next day. And Calandra wrote, I need to learn to say no when I feel that it is too much. I think that's why scheduling the accomplishments is helpful, because then when you see the reality, it's really sometimes hard to schedule in something else. And I hope that the message that you either say no upfront or when you don't do it is helpful to you, because for me, I don't want to disappoint. So I would rather say no in the beginning. But unfortunately, there are just too many cool things I want to do. I enjoy my job too much. So luckily, my husband is a kind and forgiving person and doesn't mind if I stay at work late occasionally. And I just want to thank, before I wrap up, and give you a little bit of your time back, Dr. Jeffrey Ford. He's now retired from the Fisher College of Business at Ohio State University, but he was the one that helped with this in the beginning. So I hope you all have a great day, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jess.
As always, to stay connected with us, make sure you follow us on Facebook. We have some data deadlines, things coming up, other things like that we usually tend to post on there. So if you're ever looking for kind of updates, be sure to follow us on Facebook and enjoy the rest of your day.